This video is based on the technical analysis of Ger40, which is also known as Dax40, and we're on the weekly chart. And in regards to this weekly chart, we can see that the market is in an upward trending market. To add to this, we can also see that the market is at a very strong level of resistance at this point in time, as we've had multiple rejections in and around that area. And what this tells us is that we may be getting ready for a reversal of sorts, right? We may be getting ready for a reversal. And what else do we see in regards to the weekly chart do we have that we should be paying attention to? Another thing is that we had an overextended W structure over here, which had a neckline at that point, and we saw the market breaking to the upside of that neckline, coming back to the neckline to give it a test. And where we have that neckline over there, as you guys know, is where we should have looked for those potential buying opportunities, right? So we should have bought more or less at this point, and our take profit should have been at that level where the current high is, right? And what else do we see, guys, in regards to the weekly chart? At this point, I don't see much, although just remember we spoke about how the market is at a very strong level of resistance. And another thing that I see is that we may be getting ready for an M structure over here, right, where we may see the market actually move further down to around this level, which is in line with more or less where this potential M structure could have started, right? But just also keep in mind that as much as I'm saying that we may potentially get an M structure, we also have, as I said, this level over here, which is the neckline of this overextended W structure, and is now also a very strong level of support at this point in time. So it may happen that the market only pushes further down to around this level to test that area, and then continues to move further up, right? So what I'm doing at this point in time, guys, is just speculating, and I'm not necessarily saying that the market will unravel in the manner in which I've just described. I'm just showing you some of the possible outcomes that we may encounter in as far as Ger40 is concerned. Anyway, from here, what I'm going to do is head down to the daily chart, and let's see what's happening on the daily chart. And here we are on the daily chart. And just to recap, remember on the weekly chart we spoke about how we had this overextended W structure over here, and as you guys know, it is an overextended W structure because that first leg is much higher than that second leg, right? And we also said that that structure has a neckline at that point, which now also acts as support, and that we may potentially see the market from where it is actually move further down to where this level is, right? Anyway, here we are on the daily chart. What do we see on the daily chart? Remember, I also spoke about, as much as we have this W structure over here with a neckline at that point, we also have a potential M structure forming, with this side potentially being the second leg of that M structure, and we may potentially see the market actually move further down, right? As much as we have that, guys, if I can just zoom in, we can also see that we had also had what seems to be a W structure over here, which also had a neckline at that point, right? And we can actually say that this W structure has played itself out, and that is because it started at this point and the movement of price ended at this level in line with where it started, right? So this W structure is no longer valid. However, having said that, it has a neckline at that point, and the neckline is now also a very strong level of support. And as much as I said that we may potentially get an M structure over here, what may possibly happen is we may only get a retracement of price only to where we have that neckline, and at that neckline we may potentially see the market continue to move further up, especially because we are in an upward trending market or an upward trajectory, right? And what else do we see, guys, in regards to the daily chart? At this point, I don't see much. I also want to point out, however, that we have this candlestick over here, and what it is a bullish candlestick which has quite a small body and quite a long upper wick, and where that wick ends at the top, we have a lot of liquidity there. And as you guys know, liquidity is actually money that needs to be triggered by the market at one point or another. So it may happen that before we actually get, or before you potentially get a retracement of sorts at this point, the market may continue to move further up to trigger all of that liquidity, and then on the smaller time frames we may potentially see an M structure, and then the market potentially move further down to around this level, which is in line with where we have the neckline of this W structure, which is also now a very strong level of support at this point in time, right? On this chart I don't see much of interest. What I will do now is head down to the H4 chart, and here we are on the H4 chart. And just to recap on the H4 chart, remember on the H4 chart we also spoke about, rather on the daily chart we spoke about how we have this huge W structure with a neckline at that point, and we also spoke about how, if I can just zoom out, potentially we may be having a double top or an M structure, with this side being the second leg of that M structure. But let's zoom in on the H4 chart and see what else is happening. On the H4 chart, we can also see that we have another candlestick over there. It is very much similar to that candlestick that I spoke about on the daily chart, in that it too is a bullish candlestick which has quite a small body and a long upper wick. And as I said, at that point where that wick ends or starts at the top, there's a lot of money there. And as I said, guys, we may on the lower time frames actually see a situation where the market actually moves further up, gives us an M structure, and then moves further down to around this level, which is the neckline of that W structure that I spoke about. And at this level over here is where I believe we may potentially start looking for those buying opportunities, right? Another thing that I also want to mention on the H4 chart is that as much as the market is at a very strong level of resistance at this point in time, right? And we spoke about how we have this W structure over here. If I can just zoom in, we can also see that we actually have another overextended smaller W structure over here, which also has a neckline at that point, right? So what this means is that actually buying or selling at this point in time is a bit risky, right? And that is because we have opposing structures. Number one, as I said, guys, we have price being at a very strong level of resistance due to those many touches that we spoke about, or many rejections that we spoke about earlier. Number two, we have this overextended W structure, which also has a neckline at that point, right? It has a neckline at this point, and you guys know that whenever we have these patterns such as the W structure, we would love to see price actually heading up to the neckline, breaking it to the upside, and then coming back to the neckline in the future just to give it a test. And at that point is where we normally look for those potential buying opportunities, especially if the neckline aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool. So what may possibly happen at this point in time is that the market from where it is may move further down to the neckline of this overextended W structure, and at this point we may potentially see the market move up, right? So in as far as buying or selling goes at this point in time, I don't see any actual opportunities. But like I said, guys, we may potentially see on these smaller time frames a situation where price heads up to where this candlestick ends over here to grab that liquidity, and then possibly give us a smaller M structure, and then the market may move further down to around this level, and at this level we may potentially see the market move up, or the market may disregard this level and move further down to the neckline of that bigger W structure that I spoke about earlier. And at that point we may potentially see the market actually move further up, or we may actually see a situation where the market disregards the W formation here, or rather the neckline of that W formation, right? Pushes further down, disregards the neckline of this W formation over here, and then again pushes further down to around this level, which is where we have the neckline of that bigger W structure that we spoke about on the weekly chart, which is over here. Can you guys see that, right? And remember, guys, all I'm doing at this point is just speculating, and I'm not saying that the market will unravel in the way in which I've just described. We just need to make sure rather that we pay attention and practice good money management, and we execute to the best of our ability.